From Myanmar here in Brussels. Thank you for coming, Mr. Ambassador Paul Win Sein. We had also a chance to discuss briefly and to prepare our delegation visit. Now, we start with Mr. Salai Tsa Ukling. Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for holding this important event to discuss the situation of human rights in Burma at this important juncture, and giving us a chance to present the human rights situation facing our people before this subcommittee. I know that many here in the Parliament were also involved in making this event happen, and our heartfelt thanks goes to each and every one of the people here. We're especially grateful because of the emphasis being placed on the situation of Burma's ethnic and religious minorities as the topic of this discussion. As most people here know, the situation of ethnic and religious minorities has often been overlooked and sometimes simply dismissed by both domestic and international players as something of less important concern in the ongoing democratization process. But we believe that respect for ethnic and religious minorities underpins the foundation of a stable, prosperous, unified, and peaceful Burma. Madam Chair, for nearly 20 years, our organization has been involved in monitoring and documenting the human rights situation of the Chin people, the ethnic and religious minorities in the west of the country, which is geographically most isolated, most impoverished, neglected, as well as one of the most heavily militarized regions in Burma. For many decades, our people have suffered institutionalized discrimination and persecution on the dual basis of our ethnicity and religion. In September 2012, the Chin Human Rights Organization released a report focusing on the status of religious freedom for Chin Christians, who constitute 90% of the population in Chin State, and found that severe violations of religious freedom still continue, even as the new government under President Thein Sein is undertaking reforms on many fronts. I'd like to share with you some of the findings from this report. Ongoing violations of religious freedom include widespread restriction on constructing and renovating Christian infrastructure, destruction of Christian crosses, violations of freedom of religious assembly, induced or coerced conversion by state actors of Chin Christian children, and threats, intimidation, and harassment of pastors and missionaries. In preparing this report, we also documented the destruction of 13 large Christian crosses, 4 of which happened under President Thein Sein's administration. 15 Buddhist pagodas or monasteries built with forced labor exacted from Christians, one of which I personally built, even though I'm a Christian. More than 40 separate incidents of torture or ill treatment targeted at the Chins on the dual basis of our ethnicity and religion. 24 official complaints of severe violations of religious, including rape, extrajudicial killing, lodged by Chin Christian at various levels of government, where no action was ever taken. However, of paramount important concern to the Chin people is ongoing government program under the Ministry of Border Affairs, which is overwhelmingly dominated by the military, where Chin children are being recruited to study at the ministry-run border areas National Racist Youth Development Training Schools, locally known in its Burmese acronym as NATALA, and is operating outside of the mainstream state education system. Chin Christian youth who attended these residential schools told us that they have been coerced or forced to convert to Buddhism, primarily via the threat of military conscription. Our documentation shows that the monks from the Hill Region's Buddhist mission under the Ministry of Religious Affairs are involved in recruitment to the Natala schools as well as teaching in these schools. Chin Christian attendees told CHRO that in the school they are prevented from practicing Christianity, where they face punishment if they fail to recite Buddhist scriptures. They are also forced to shave their heads to become Buddhist novice monks or nuns. These schools now effectively operate as a front for the forced assimilation policy under the guise of development in ethnic areas. Madam Chair, I would like to draw the committee's attention to the fact that the issues of forced religious conversion and forced assimilation of Chin Christians, as well as other severe violations of religious freedom have also been raised by Burma's Country Special Rapporteur, Mr. Thomas O.J. Quintana, in his 2 reports to the UN Human Rights Council, March 2011 and March 2013, respectively. This was also raised in a letter dated 16 January 2013 to Baroness Catherine Ashton by a group of 14 MEPs. Moreover, 5 different mandate holders of the special procedures under the UN Human Rights Council also separately raised the same issue in their 9-page long letter dated 22nd October 2012 to President Thein Sein's government. Madam Chair, a delegation of CHRO recently returned from a trip to Burma just 2 weeks ago, and we met with a range of local and national stakeholders, including, among others, Tura Ushiman, the Speaker of Pitul Hutto, the lower house of Burmese Parliament, members of the Myanmar National Human Rights Commission, a group of 17 Chin members of Parliament in the Union Parliament from across the political spectrum, prominent Chin Christian religious leaders, student and youth groups. In all the meetings we had with the Chin stakeholders, they expressed particular concern about the way Natala schools operate in Chin State, which they also view as an assimilation program initiated by the previous junta, but still is being carried on by the new government under the same policy objectives. To put it in context, 9 out of 29 of these schools across the country are in Chin State, with 1/3 of the trainees of the students in all 29 schools being from Chin, meaning that the Chin are particularly targeted for recruitment. Madam Chair, we welcome many of the reforms measures being implemented by President Thein Sein government, but unfortunately these reforms have not extended to religious freedom in the country. Discrimination on grounds of religion and ethnicity is both deep-rooted and institutionalized, and premised on the long-standing unwritten policy of successive governments. To be a Burmese citizen is to be a Burman and Buddhist. This must change if the current reforms are to lead to a true and peaceful democratic Burma. To this end, we believe that current reforms should focus on dismantling the institutional structure and policies that enable continued discrimination and forced assimilation against ethnic and religious minorities. We believe that a good way to start this would be for the government to immediately revise the national registration card so that it no longer identifies the bearer's religion or ethnicity. In terms of government institutions, no genuine democracy with plural societies should have a ministry or department devoted to promoting one particular religion at the expense of other minority religions, or one whose sole mandate is to force assimilate minorities into mainstream cultures. Unfortunately, such 2 ministries exist in Burma today, the Ministry of Religious Affairs and military-dominated Ministry for Border Affairs. Madam Chair, in light of its coming visit to Burma, I would like to recommend that the delegation seek to prioritize meeting with as many ethnic and religious minorities stakeholders as possible, including ordinary citizens, religious leaders, ethnic-based parties, and ethnic MPs. Moreover, the delegation should try and visit ethnic areas and not just confine themselves to Naypyidaw or Rangoon to meet with high-level officials and high-profile opposition figures so that they can gain a better sense and more accurate picture of the situation facing the most vulnerable group in the country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And yes, we, in our program, we will try to meet with very different representatives of civil society. But you see, we have very limited rules. So we have already to squeeze the whole program in 2.5 days. And going to an ethnic area is completely, we don't get permission to do this, but perhaps in the next time we can do it differently. So I also have